Kettlebell flip, this is a precursor to the snatch. Remember, when we swing, either single hand, double hand, two bells, whenever we swing, there's this zone that the bell floats in, right? Where it's just kind of sitting there. That's where we want to insert our hand into the bell and punch it through the ceiling for the kettlebell snatch, so that way we're not banging on the wrist so hard. So remember, with that kettlebell snatch, we don't want to all the way up, because it will have no choice but to come over and bang on the wrist, which is really, 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 really hard to do. And it's really painful. So what we want to end up doing is, when that bell is about chest high and it starts to float, we want to punch our hand through, so that way we don't get that banging on the wrist. So what does that look like? The kettlebell high pull, remember, we want to keep that elbow tight. So with that flip, when we're in that high pull position, we want to punch our hand through. The bell will move in our hand slightly, so that way we can get it all the way up. So with that flip, when the bell is coming up for that high pull, we want to punch that hand through so the bell comes over. So in full speed, we're still elbowing that person behind us. When we elbow that person behind us, that's when we punch our hand all the way through. Similar to a punch. We don't want to fully extend all the way out. We want to high pull and a punch. Kettlebell high pull. Like with all movement exercises, we want to use medium to medium light kettlebell, something you can kind of control, but gives you enough resistance. Now, there's different versions of the high pull. You'll see a lot of people high pull straight up. That's a high pull. That's fine. But the high pull that we're going to use is kind of a precursor to the kettlebell snatch, right? So we all know when the bell gets to a certain point in the top of our swing, it starts to float. There's no resistance really provided by the bell. And that's what we're trying to pull the bell up to. Essentially what we're doing, we're going to single arm swing, but I want you to keep that elbow tight as possible. We're not doing a big arc. We want to keep the bell as tight as possible. So we're going to swing, keep the elbow tight, bring the bell up until the bell naturally pulls that elbow off the body, and then pull it back into us. So what does that look like? We're going to set up like we normally do with our kettlebell. And we're going to do that swing, keep the elbow tight, and let the bell pull the elbow off the body. And the reason we're doing this is we're finding that floating area with the kettlebell, so that way we can eventually get to all the way up without that banging of the wrist on the kettlebell snatch. So once again, we want to keep that bell nice and tight until the bell naturally pulls the elbow off the body. And that is your kettlebell high pull. Now there's a couple different versions of the prying squat, and this depends on your hip mobility, and this movement also increases your hip mobility. So the first one involves a kettlebell. We bring the kettlebell safely up, and when we sit down, we want to drive those knees out. We can rock back and forth with the kettlebell up. Make sure you keep your chest up the whole time to open your hips. If you don't have that type of hip mobility or flexibility, what we can do is stand up nice and tall, and we can go down and lean from one side, pushing our palm into our knee, opening up our hips. Opening up our hips. And we want to go down as far as we can to open up those hips to prepare for the squats.